Hey everybody, Torrian Scott here. Welcome to another episode of Masters in the Marketplace. I'm so excited to be with you today because I have some amazing information to give you, and I hope that you can lock in. You know, this is episode number one, officially number one of season 2, and I got to tell you why I'm starting this particular podcast. I'm starting this podcast and renewing it with all of the things that I've learned over the past few years, because I really want to touch and I really want to inspire that God-confident entrepreneur, that person that's out there that says, you know, I want to do business, but I want to do business God's way. I want to do leadership, but I want to do it with integrity. I want to lead with wisdom. I want to lead with love. I want people to be inspired when I walk in the room. I don't want people to run away when I come into the room. I want to be an inspirational leader. I want to be a motivational leader. I want to impact the work that I have been blessed to do. And that's what Masters in the Marketplace is all about. And so I thank you so very much for being one of our subscribers, being one of those that are in our community. I cannot wait to actually officially meet you pretty soon, whether it's going to be a virtual event or a physical event. I cannot wait to really actually put my hand in yours and say hello in person. So I'm excited that you're with me virtually though, so make sure that you interact in the comments. You know, you can ask questions in the comments. You can make comments in the comments. You know how social media works. You know how YouTube works. So the reality is, don't be shy. Also, those who are actually listening, I would love if you would leave a review, if you would rate and review this. We want to touch as many entrepreneurs and leaders, executives as possible. Why? Because we know that when leaders get inspired, whole organizations can thrive. We know that whole nations can thrive when leaders actually are inspired. So I'm your host today and for the remaining future, and I'm excited about all that we have to share today. Okay, let me jump in right now. You know, I want to title this podcast, this is a solo cast. I want to title this solo cast, The Burden to Build. The Burden to Build. I want to talk about this because, you know, when it comes down to building anything, I believe that you have to have a burden. I don't think that when it comes down to starting a business or starting an organization, whether it be a ministry or nonprofit, I don't think that you should start it with just pure logic. I don't think you should just start it with just pure, you know, profit on your mind. I think that those things are important. I think that, you know, impacting people is important. I believe that every one of us should have a burden to actually start something. Like, for instance, this podcast, this concept has been in my heart probably for the last 10 years. I remember when I first got the concept of Masters in the Marketplace, it was 2015, and I was on staff, and I was had the wonderful opportunity to raise up entrepreneurs and leaders and, you know, get a chance to inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs. And, you know, I couldn't get past this frustration that I had. The frustration that I had was I kept on meeting people. I kept on running into people with great ideas, wonderful concepts, innovations. I'm talking about they had books, they had all of these ideas, but none of them had turned them into a vision. None of them really turned it into anything. It was just this manuscript that was sitting on their bookshelf. It was, you know, an idea that was scribbled in an actual notepad, and they had never done anything with it. And I was just like, come on, here we are, people with access to the greatest book in the entire world, the Word of God, the Bible. And yet the scriptures tell us that there's nothing impossible to him who believes. And here we have people who are living possibilities or not going after the impossibilities. And I began to ask myself, and of course, and in times of prayer, said, God, like, what is all of this all about? And it was about a burden. He said, it's about a burden. You have to have a burden to actually build. You remember Nehemiah. Nehemiah was a character in the Bible. For those who are not familiar with the Bible, it's not going to be a Bible study, but I just want to just kind of give some reference to this. Nehemiah did something that was absolutely impossible. He heard about devastation and he appealed to the king. He obtained the resources. He went to his distant country of Jerusalem. He got the help. He got protection. And he also mustered up the confidence to do something impossible, which was rebuild the gates of his home country. You know, he wrestled through obstacles, and And he wrestled through all of these things, getting people on board. You know how hard it is to get people on board, building a team and talking to those who would help him in this whole process when it came down to resources. And in 52 days, he actually rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem in which they would have protection from their enemies. Well, the reality is that he went through the rigor of this new project, and that was something that was well versed with obscurity and also challenge. Even though he was not educated in being a contractor or anything like that, yet he was successful. And I asked the question, why was he successful? Was it desperation? No. Was it sympathy? Maybe. Was it for notoriety? Probably not. To me, it wasn't about building anything fast. It was just the fact that he had a burden to build. He had a burden to build. He had a burden for his people. He felt it at a deep level, and he wanted to do something about it. He didn't want to just sit idly by and say, okay, whatever it's going to be. Oh man, it sucks for them. Or, oh, well, I don't have the resources. Well, I'm not educated. He didn't give any excuses. He just said, no, here's something that means something to me, and I got to get involved with it. And many of you are in businesses like that right now. Like, man, I'm so passionate about helping people with data. I'm so passionate about helping with people with marketing. I'm so passionate about helping people with their leadership or with their skill set or learning how to speak and all of those differences, learning how to present, how to show up confidently. There's something that it's beyond inspiration to be known. It's about a burden to build. I want to read you a couple of things. A burden is something that goes beyond the surface of desire. I believe it goes beyond just the surface of the desire of notoriety or sympathy or empathy for a person or a place. It's a deep longing that wrenches the soul until it's accomplished. It wrenches your soul. I mean, you can't get away from this thing. Like, it is something that you want to do, but also it's something that I have to do, right? It's something that you feel so deeply. It encompasses every part of you, spirit, soul, and body. It fills your mind and it infiltrates your imagination and it raptures your emotions and it forces your will to do something about the problem, the person, or the place. It's a burden. It's you really truly saying, I gotta do something about this. And, some years ago, I'm listening to podcasts all the time. I'm always listening to people, always listening to, inspiration and motivation and information about leadership and, the things that I'm very much interested in. And, sometimes when I was listening to certain podcasts, it would have some wonderful information, but then, gosh, they'll bring in something that just absolutely goes against my values. And it's like, well, man, I can't, man, this is some good information. And Now I gotta kind of see if I really kind of have to believe those things or, take in those things anymore because it's something that went against my values. And I said, you know what? I want to create a podcast where inspiration, motivation, information, all about leadership is done with integrity, with wisdom. You're not going to be, listening to this and all of a sudden you hear somebody slip out an F-bomb or S-bomb or any of those things. You're not going to see me defending, foul language, or you're not going to see me defending some specific cause that, I don't agree with. I mean, there's just so many things. It's like I wanted to build and wanted to put something out there that someone like me who's listening to grow, I'm looking to be inspired. I'm looking to be motivated. I'm looking for more information. I'm looking for a different perspective in life when it comes down to leadership and somebody else's stories. And I wanted to do it in a safe manner, in a way that my kids can actually listen to it. So if that's you, you're listening to the right podcast. Also, I remember some time ago, I was, sitting underneath a specific mentor, and this mentor has done some amazing things. Grown a multi-million-dollar organization, multi-million-dollar business. But alongside of that, there was this one particular vision that he wanted to bring about, which was ministering and touching the lives of young people. He and his wife had saw that, man, there's so much going on in the world in the early 80s. I was going to be the late early 80s. Yeah, I guess it's the early 80s. The late 1900s, right? The 1984, they birthed this particular organization that would help children all over the world become leaders and come out of the gangs and come off of drugs and actually graduate from high school and, really set them on a specific path. But before they got to that place of success, I remember him telling this story. His wife was telling the story actually about how she was sitting on her porch or standing on her porch, and she saw all of the degradation that was going on in the neighborhood. She saw kids skipping school. She saw kids joining gangs. She saw kids, dropping out of school. She saw all these different things. And she was like, somebody ought to do something about that. And it came very clearly to her that as one finger was pointing out, there were three others that were pointing back at her. She said, it wasn't about somebody else doing it. It was about me doing it. And she said, I began to have this burden to build. I began to build something that is that was touching my heart, that was getting underneath my skin. It was a burden to actually build. In order to be successful in anything, I believe that you have to have a burden. I believe you have to have a burden. I believe that you should have a burden as a father. I believe you should have a burden as a wife. I believe you should have a burden as a basketball player, a leader, whatever you're doing, whatever you're involved in order to be successful, there's got to be something beyond just you wanting to be known or you wanting to be seen. So as far as success goes, everyone has a different definition of success. It doesn't always mean millions of dollars. It doesn't always mean that you're rich and famous. It doesn't always mean that you have the time freedom to do whatever. I like the way that Earl Nightingale defined success. He said, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal or a worthy goal. What success is for one person is not for the other person. Think about this: financial success to you that's listening to this, entrepreneur, leader, business owner, executive, CEO, 10 million net in your business might be good for you, might be amazing for you. I mean, $100 million this year, you netting that, it may be great for you. However, let's think about $100 million net for Warren Buffett, a person who has 816 million annually from his 400 million shares in Coca-Cola. Okay. Think about he has Bank of America, 991.5 million in dividends from Bank of America stake. The Occidental Petroleum, 964 million. Apple and its dividends earn 878 million. American Express, 424 million. Him netting 100 million in 1 year, it's probably not success for him, right? Might be success for you. So success is relative, right? But when you're progressively going after a worthy ideal, when you're moving forward in something and you have a burden to actually produce, that makes you that much more successful. So success is about progressively realizing what you have a burden to build. So here's the question that I have for you. What do you have the burden to build? What do you have the burden to say? What do you have the burden to write? Who do you have the burden to touch and impact? What industry do you have the burden to make a dent in and disrupt? What nation do you have the burden to heal? What is it that you desire to do that you feel like it goes beyond just you being interested, but you're irritated almost to actually make it happen? You are moved out of a comfort zone. You're moved out of a place of just wanting it to now it's required for your life. This is having a burden. A burden is beyond a dream because it requires action. It requires for you to move out of your comfort zone. It requires that you take a risk. It requires that you start where you are. I think about this podcast right now. I'm a person, just kind of give you, probably just like you, I want everything to be in place, before I start, right? I want all of the likes and the loves to be there. I want to have the team. I want to have everything. I want to have everything in place. But how many of you know that just, it doesn't work like that? The reality is that you have to start where you are. Right now, I'm starting where I'm at. We have a Sony A7 camera that's taking this. I have my cell phone on the side that's getting the side angle. What's up? I'm reading my notes not from a teleprompter. I'm reading it from my iPad right here. I have this mic that my wife is letting me borrow because this is the mic that she uses to record all of her actual her album and her music and all of those different things. I'm using a Zoom mic to capture everything in, but I'm starting where I am. And when it comes down to building with the burden, it says, you know what, I got to start where I am. I may not have access to millions of dollars of equipment. I may not have access to, millions of dollars of a credit line. I may not have access to the things that, quote unquote, the people that I'm looking up to now that have literally spent 10, 15 years building, may not have access to those things right now. However, I can start with what I have in my hand. And can I just tell you this, that when you start with what you have in your hand, that's where the miracles can actually take place. So stop thinking that you have to have it all in a row. Stop thinking that you have to have all the equipment. Just start where you are. Start with the burden. The burden doesn't go away. The burden doesn't go away until you start doing something. You got to take action and start where you are. So maybe you're listening and you're saying, you know what, Torrian, I don't have a burden. I would answer you and say, yes, you do, but you're just too busy. You say, I don't feel this gnawing, I don't say a gnawing lump of anxiety, but I don't feel this, I gotta do something. Well, I think that you may be too busy. You may be too busy, or you're too noisy. Your world is too noisy. You have to get to a point where you truly find yourself in tranquility and saying, okay, I need to set aside social media for a second. I need to maybe stop partying so much. Maybe I need to turn off Netflix. Maybe I need to stop playing video games on my phone. Maybe I need to stop doom scrolling. Maybe I need to just get to the point where I'm just quiet and still so that I can feel and hear this burden building on the inside of me. See, it's beyond just a passion. It's a burden. It's like, I gotta do it. And a burden comes in two things. It comes from knowledge of two things. Number one comes from the knowledge of devastation. If we go back to Nehemiah, you go and read Nehemiah, the time that you get a chance to do that, you'll find that he heard about the devastation that was going on. He heard about it. He never even saw it. He heard about it. There's some things that you can get involved in because you hear about it. There's, this is beyond just, societal pains. There's people that's like, you know what? Some people don't have the ability to write or read. And how do they communicate? Well, that's where people have a burden to create software or programs to help people to grow in that. I think about Apple Computer. Apple Computer, of course, started off as Macintosh. And the reality is that they said they wanted to make sure that every person in the entire world had the ability to have a computer in their hands. They wanted to make sure everyone in the world had a computer in their hands. Now, I won't say that, that was a big burden, but that was beyond just a societal. They wanted to make sure that someone had the opportunity to connect with technology. So devastation in specific industries, specific society things, things that are in relationship. There's so many different types of entrepreneurs that listen to this, but there may be a devastation that's happened in an industry, in a place, in a person that you say, I have a burden to create a solution for. And then here's the next thing. A burden begins with the knowledge of destiny. I got to point back to Jesus. Jesus had this amazing burden to reconcile the world to God. You know the story. He came from heaven to earth, right? Walked among us as a mere man, susceptible to all of the temporal things that we experience, the temptations, the fears, the anxieties, the worries, and all those different things. But in all of that, he didn't sin. He didn't miss the mark. He stayed focused on his call, on his burden that he had. You got to remember, there's certain things that Jesus said. He said, I must be about my Father's business. He told his mama that, okay? He said, don't you know I got to be about my Father's business? He had this burden. If you look at other scriptures, you see the Bible says that his face was turned like flint towards Jerusalem. He was focused. He had a burden to go into this place. And then there's another scripture that talks about who for the joy that was set before him, He endured the cross, despised the shame, and sits down at the right hand of the throne of God. I love that about Jesus because he shows us that in order to reach this destiny, we're going to have to go through some things. But he had a burden that pushed him towards it. He had a burden that pushed him towards being ridiculed and betrayed and beaten and scourged and beard pulled out and blindfolded and slapped and tried all night and body beaten, broken, open and nailed to the cross. I mean, he had a burden to reconcile. What do you have a burden to do in business? If you had a burden in leadership, what would it be? What would it look like that you're willing to go through pain for? That you're willing to go through hurt for, that you're willing to go through long, arduous hours for. I'm talking about getting completely out of your comfort zone. Here in the United States of America, we have a comfortable, cushy type of situation out here. And you got to get out of your comfort zone to build something great. Every single person, I don't care who you're talking about a person who's made it in ministry. When I say made it, gotten thousands upon thousands, I guarantee you there's a level of hurt, a level of pain, a level of sacrifice, a level of long nights that was connected to that. Person who's building a big business, same thing. A person who's building a beautiful family, same thing. It's the burden to build that causes them to move forward. So today, I just wanted to challenge you, just kind of like an introspective type of solo cast today. What do you have the burden to build? What is it? I want you to share those things in the comments. Or if you want to email me, you can email me info@torrianscott.com. I would love to hear your story, but I really want the community to see and want people to hear what you're building. What is it? What do you have a burden to build? What do you truly want to accomplish with your leadership, with your business, with your innovations, with your software, with your curriculum, with the things that you're doing out in the marketplace? What is it? I want to hear it and I want to know, but I really want you to get down. What's the devastation maybe that I've heard about? And what's the destiny that I can take people to? So just wanted to share those things. That's just something to think about. Just a little short podcast for you. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, I want to say thank you once again for listening to this amazing podcast. I believe this is going to be the best podcast on the planet. I'm telling you, this is what we're doing. I need you to mark your calendars for a couple of things. Number one, I need you to mark your calendar for December 13th. I'm extending the early bird price of $47 for general, $147 for VIP for the next 2 days. This is December 1st. So on December 3rd, that's the last day that you'll be able to get the early bird price. 10 days before the actual event, then everything's going up. $97 for general, $197. This is what you're going to get. Crystal clear 2026 goal blueprint. I'm telling you, this blueprint I've used for years and have helped many of my clients, many of the people that I mentor, many of the people I coach to actually do this. And they have had breakthrough years as a result of the framework that we're going to be able to put down. It's a faith-based strategic planning tool. You'll get that. You'll get personal business audit. You'll get a custom 12-month revenue map. I mean, there's so many wonderful things. This is what you got to do. You just got to get in the room for Goal Getters 2026 because the goal that you have is reachable, okay? It's reachable, but it's going to require some things, okay? Also, VIPs, you're going to get a VIP breakout session with me as well as some of my special guests. You're not going to miss out on that. Q&A, hot seat coaching, lifetime access to the event, and then some other cool things that we're going to be able to throw your way, okay? Also, need you to remember every Monday, tune in to Masters in the Marketplace on YouTube. So make sure that you like, love, subscribe. If you're listening, once again, rate it, review it, leave an actual comment. That way we can, be populated more. We want the algorithm to catch on to Masters in the Marketplace. And also every Wednesday is Wisdom Wednesdays. I know I didn't spell it right, but it's a play on words. Wisdom wins days. Okay. So wisdom wins the days. I always say this, a proverb a day keeps the foolishness away, right? Proverbs is full of wisdom. So I want you to make sure that you keep it locked. Wisdom Wednesdays. Follow all of our handles. Listen, follow me on Instagram. Follow us on Instagram for Masters in the Marketplace. All of that is down below. Make sure that you're following, liking, loving, sharing. Listen, this is the reason why. This is why we're doing this. Our team wants to reach 1 million subscribers in 1 year. That's our impossible goal. Okay. It's our impossible goal. Why? Because every subscriber represents a leader, and every leader represents a family, and every family represents a legacy, and every legacy represents kingdom transformation in the marketplace. And that's what we want to do here. You are anointed for business. You are anointed for leadership, and that's who we are called to. So make sure that you like it, love it, subscribe to it, rate it, review it, share it, all those different things. Maybe I'll make up a song for it. But I want to say thank you so very much for listening to Masters in the Marketplace. This is episode 1. The next episode that you hear, I have a special guest on, and I can't wait for you to hear their testimony. Remember, here we grow.